Welcome to episode 52 of The Entrepreneurs. I'm Sophie Grove. We start the show with a success story of self-publishing. In 2005, when Eileen Gittins launched her company Blurb, she was intent on filling a gaping hole in the market. She wanted to allow consumers to quickly, simply and cheaply publish physical books. The publishing world was notoriously entrenched in its ways, and her prospects looked grim. Yet only 5 years later, Blurb was named the fastest-growing media company in the United States. The story of how this happened is a fascinating one. Eileen popped by the studio to tell us more.
At the time, ebooks weren't quite there yet, so it was about print. So the big question for us was, could we make money on a book of one copy? How would we do that? Seriously. Because if publishing was all about, no, you need to sell through 30,000 to make it economic, we thought if we could figure out how to make money on a book of one, then we could open up publishing to everyone in the world who had something to say or who had some content that they wanted to publish for whatever reason, whether for personal or just sharing or to sell or for promotional reasons.
And when you first approached printers with that idea, did they laugh at you?
Yes. Well, first the VCs laughed at me because they thought I was crazy. Honestly, because this was at a time when WordPress, blogs, Wikipedia, Flickr, things were all going online. And I was approaching them in 2005 to get the company financed. And I was saying, well, I've got this great idea. How about we take all of this digital content and we take it back out analog and we print physical books? What do you think? And they all, I knew a lot of VCs because I'd been CEO of couple of other companies. So they took my meeting, but usually those meetings ended with, great to see you, Eileen. Let's have lunch sometime. Good luck. And that was that. And so finally what ended up happening was I went back to a couple of VCs that I knew well. And they gave me, $2 million to start the business because they thought, I don't think they knew exactly what it was going to become, but they thought this business of disrupting what was a $70 billion industry worldwide, that was interesting. And I think they just, as much as anything, were betting on me as they were that I had all the answers.
And clearly they were onto something because 5 years later you were the fastest growing media company in the United States.
It's true. This last year we delivered almost 2 million books to 72 countries on 5 continents in 5 years' time. We launched in mid-2006. And every year we have been growing to the point where now we're approaching doing $100 million of revenue, somewhere close to that this year. So we've been growing by leaps and bounds. And of course, this last week, we've not only launched an ebook for the iPad, but we've just launched tools for everybody to be able to make a rich media ebook. So you can now add video and voice and live links in your ebooks.
So how did you convince printers to take on these one jobs?
Yep. That turns out to be both the easiest part and the most difficult part. The easy part, honestly, was we were approaching them at a time, this is, remember, 2005, when a lot of their print business was going away. We found a printer in Seattle, Washington, who had been doing a lot of the technical manuals for Microsoft. Well, Microsoft was taking those all onto CD-ROM, so there was no more printing. So these guys had huge capacity sitting around with print devices, print engines, and people that they wanted to continue to employ. So here was my pitch to them. Okay, you ready? So we will write to your API. We will send you the cleanest work you've ever seen. It will all be pre-press enabled. We will print one size book. You tell us how you want the files delivered. You never have to deal with a customer. The only customer you ever have to deal with is Blurb. And we will bring you all this business. And what do you think? And basically they said, so how many books do you think we could do? And we gave them our forecasts. And I will tell you, we exceeded our forecasts. And the result is after we started with that first printer, then we got a second one very quickly on the East Coast. And now we have printers all over the world, none of whom are owned by us, by the way. Interesting. We are a web company. We're a technology company. We don't actually do any of the printing ourselves. So the easy part was getting them to sign up to, that sounds great. The difficult part was, it turns out the hardest part was actually the integration technically, because these guys were all used to shipping out a pallet of books to 3 customers a day. We needed to send out 3,000 packages to individual people around the world every day. So the actual data integration part and tech, systems integration part turned out to be the hardest thing of all because they knew how to print books. They just had no idea about e-commerce and how to physically ship 3,000 packages via, the mail or the post a day.
I'm reading here you had a new book title coming across your server every 1.1 seconds.
Yeah.
And
So,
what are the advantages of outsourcing the actual printing from a business perspective?
Yep. Because we don't have to buy equipment and because we now have enough leverage because we're doing volume, we can go to our print partners and develop a new product in 90 days' time. If we owned all of that kit ourselves and had to train up people and buy the paper and all of this, it would take us 9 months, not 90 days. Mm-hmm. So we are now able to develop new products. In fact, we're coming out with a magazine product later this month. We're going to be launching a brand new format for personal magazine creation for people all over the world. That's very exciting. If we were doing that from scratch as the printer ourselves, Christ, that would take us 2 years to get that off the ground.
And what I find also very interesting is that you have a market for the self-publishers who use Blurb. Tell us about the market. What kind of people are selling books?
Yeah. So what we did from the very get-go was said, okay, if we can achieve a level of print quality and really fidelity, color management fidelity, and beautiful materiality, then people like me would flock to our doors. So our first place was go after creative professionals who were really discerning about print quality. Because of that, then, of course, all kinds of companies started to find their way to our door. So Nike and Ralph Lauren and Pixar and Disney and all of these companies for whom, if you can't replicate the logo color of that business, forget about it. It's the price of admission, right? So we started to see all of these businesses come to Blurb. Well, when we saw that, then people who had commercial work that they wanted to sell also found out about us. And pretty soon, instead of just having an e-commerce engine where people could buy their own books, we started to have people say, hang on a minute, I'd love to sell my book at Blurb. Can you enable me to make money on my books? So we said, yes, we'd be delighted to do that. So we opened up our bookstore, and our business model became this on the print side. When you make a book, you have a decision. You can make that book public if you wish at our bookstore at blurb.com, or you can keep it private. If you make it public, you then have the option of choosing whatever price for it over and above the unit price of a single printed copy. So, for instance, if your book was £15 or $15, you could sell that book for £20 or $25. And our model is you keep 100% of the markup. So in the £15 to £20 version, we would send you literally £5 every time somebody in the world bought a copy of your book. Last year, we paid out more than $1 million to authors around the world. So it really has started to take off. And now we think with the ebook, the way it works, it's really interesting. For the princely sum of, in the UK, I think it's about £6.50, you can use all of our tools for free. From the same file, you can either output to a print version or an ebook version. You can make both available at blurb.com in the bookstore. And the similar model applies. Every time somebody buys a copy of your ebook, you keep 80%, and Blurb takes 20%. But here's the really wonderful bit. If you want to sell your ebook for free, go ahead. You can sell it for nothing to start making a market for yourself. And then as your market starts to grow, then you can start attaching some commercial value to it. And that's when we participate together in your success.
That was Eileen Gittins, the CEO of Blurb, with our producer, Daniel Jacopelli.